Would anyone like to suggest in one post in the live chat what the difference is between love and infatuation? Will I get the same answer from everyone? The distinguishing feature, of course, is how long it lasts. Or whether it is reciprocated. But is that a factor, really? I think there are people who can carry on being in love with somebody who doesn't care for them, right? That's a given. And that is how the idea of, treating them mean to keep them keen came about. That we will never forget the one who rejected us, and we'll take for granted the one that loves us more than we love them. Oh dear, has something happened with my... I'm sorry at how slow my computer is. I really don't know why it is being like that. I've closed all the windows I can close. Well, I only have one concurrent viewer, and I haven't said that much. So before I go, I should quickly sum up the difference between love and infatuation in a neat way, I suppose, in a clear and coherent way, and in a way that is brief enough for you to remember. So at the time, you won't be able to tell the difference, and if you marry the person you're infatuated with and don't love them anymore, you're going to call it... What are you going to call it? You're going to call it infatuation. But calling it an infatuation means that you didn't value the experience. And frankly, there is no way of telling whether you are in love or infatuated. And one of the guides to what it was is, well, how much you managed to progress the relationship. But it is possible that you could marry that person and stay married to them for a long time without realizing the difference. Because even if you did fall in love with them and end up marrying them, eventually you will cease to have that in love feeling with them, and the scales will fall out of your eyes, will fall off your eyes, and you will feel a little foolish and wake up one morning and think, oh dear, I've married the wrong person. How could they be like this? I didn't see that side of him or her. But the thing about being married to that person is that usually you will, if you're sensible, make the best of things and think, well, I've made my bed. Now I've got to lie in it. I've got to make the best of things, because it just wouldn't do any good if I got out of this relationship, because I'll end up looking bad, particularly with, the children and everybody thinking I'm selfish to leave the marriage. And so what we do when we find ourselves in a certain situation is to make the best of things. And I think that's a healthy way of dealing with things. Assuming that we accept the situation of no longer being in love with the person that we married, even though initially we thought they were the one. But it depends on how much we were fooled into thinking they were wonderful. I mean, obviously, if they told lies about themselves and you believed them, then you would feel very angry and cheated. But if it was just a feeling of, well, I'm bored and irritated now, after so many years, that's quite, well, that would be different. And obviously we were created in such a way to have these feelings of overwhelming affection in order to make men and women who normally don't like each other, to cause them to want to have sex with each other, want to wait for each other, so that the courtship and engagement and marriage will finally be undergone. Because in the olden days there would be a period of courtship. It wouldn't just be a matter of seeing somebody that they like the look of in a dark place, playing loud music while one is slightly drunk. One has to go through the process of introducing them to our friends, our family, seeing if they have any alarming character traits such as narcissistic personality disorder or any kind of mental illness in the family, and then you've got to meet their family to see if they're really all right or just a practice con man. So if you're in love feeling with this other person can survive this process of jumping through all these hoops, and you do even marry them, then, well, you ought to have something there, because all these processes are meant to help you filter your next marriage partner and the other parent of your offspring. And so you can see that the courtship ritual is important in order that we all go through this process. So there would be a time of being on best behaviour and really surviving the test drive of ourselves that we are to undergo. We have to be test driven, and we have to test drive the other person. And if we get to the stage of marriage, and even a long marriage, well, people still do divorce, and I guess they will think of themselves as having been cheated, I suppose. A lot of men do feel that they feel cheated, particularly with the divorce settlement, perhaps. But even without those things, they might think, well, I was attracted on false pretenses. But the real difference between love and infatuation would be how long the relationship lasts. So there. Gary tells me that I'm infatuated with an idea. Well, no, it has to be a person. One can have an obsession about an idea. That's fair enough. But again, the difference really is whether it's an obsession or whether it's a conviction, and you won't know until the results are in. So there's always, two interpretations, and I've explained this to you because it's, Valentine's Eve, and I want to talk about romantic things, and I'm saying that there is no difference between being infatuated and being in love in the short term. And it's only when you undergo the process of courtship, and if you survive the process, and it actually becomes a marriage, and the marriage is, endures, then you're going to have to call it love, right? But, if you never get to the stage of becoming engaged, then you can say, well, it was just an infatuation. It's a face-saving interpretation of your romantic relationship. But I'm saying, at the time, you won't be able to tell. And as for the feeling of being in love, well, some people enjoy it, you see. I mean, some people actually, crave it or insist on it. And if they do they actually get it, and are they still unsatisfied about it afterwards? Or I guess they just, look for it in a different person once whatever relationship that they have is used and exhausted. So it's a matter of interpretation. As Nietzsche says, interpretation is not a function of truth, but that of power. And we, of course, hold the power to interpret our experiences about whether it is love or whether it is infatuation. Another example that comes to mind is if you have a friend who is a member of the opposite sex. There's always a certain percentage of people who will just assume that whoever you are seen regularly with will be assumed to be your lover. And that would be their interpretation of your relationship with your male friend. And I suppose the test would be whether they are in fact right in thinking that you are lovers or just friends or in fact married. People think, those two, I bet they've been married for 20 years. That's why they're not speaking to each other. That kind of thing that people say about, when they speculate about the lives of strangers. And now we come to another subject of what is mental illness. I saw an article in the New Statesman about what constitutes mental illness. And again, this is an interpretation. I always thought that mental illness meant really being mad. But then so many people are mad, in my view. And also we we grow up as children, children running around, and we're called mad too. We called each other mad, and now we haven't really gotten over the habit of accusing people whose ideas we don't like of being mad, and there would be really three categories of insults of people's views and opinions: that they are evil, that they are stupid, or that they are mad. So how would we tell the difference? Well, this is a matter for psychologists whose bread and butter comes from the classification of these often created mental illnesses. They can be quite creative because the psychologists want to be known for being useful to mankind, and if they kept saying that, there's nothing really new, there's nothing to psychology, it's all common sense really, then we wouldn't be very impressed by them, and then they wouldn't get all the clients that they need. So it perhaps is a form of modern witchcraft, in that you would go to a witch, I think, if there weren't any psychiatrists around and something was troubling you, and you felt that, well, I think you would go to the local person who's supposed to be wise. Is it a man or a woman? I think the man would be too busy doing his thing, and it would be a wise woman who would know about herbs and spices, and where to pick mushrooms, and who would have some knowledge of how to make stuff that's medicinal, and then you find yourself in the realm of, well, talking to somebody who might eventually be accused of being a witch if you live in turbulent times when people are paranoid. Mind you, men were also accused of being witches, according to the history of the Salem witch trial. And so we come to the conclusion, really, that clever people, ambitious people, wise people will just not be able to stop themselves from commenting on other people's affairs and get into trouble for that. Wouldn't you agree? And I suppose it would be, well, spinster women living on their own that would be, accused of these things, because these women, they chose not to be a wife, and had to rely on their own wits to survive, and they may be, well, discriminated against by the locals because they're, a little bit different. And maybe in any age there will be this desire to mock people who are not like us, even if they're our own race and our own sex. Perhaps we do that in order to raise our own status, and perhaps we realise that we can only raise our own status by lowering that of others, and by showing, well, how mean we can be to the person that we want to be mean to, and how much we can get away with in order to display our status. And for this reason, I think the question of race is really irrelevant. I see all these discussions about whether Jews are a race, and really quite pointless arguments, in my view. If Jews are supposed to be cleverer, then they're going to get into trouble, even if they're within their own community. So if you're thinking of any group really, so the clever people will just not be able to stop themselves from giving advice and giving their views on this and that, and then they will get into trouble because somebody won't like what they said. And if they have status and wealth, then they would be envied for what they have by the people below them, and the people below them would be many. So that's why I think Jews are a microcosm of humanity. Well, I do say that they are the aristocracy of humanity, because they're supposed to be the ones setting standards, but they're not perfect. They don't want to do what they think they don't need to do. They think the rules are restrictive, and they were thinking, well, I never asked to be born. I never asked to be born a Jew, and I still want to be one. But if the Gentile offers me the option of being one without following its rules and just giving me all the privileges of being a Jew, well, why wouldn't I assert my Jewish identity? People will always take to the max what is available. I think yesterday I was talking about two interpretations of suffering, the Black Death. And you could think of it as punishment from God, or you could think of it as God hurrying you to Him. And really we don't know if God exists or is hurrying us to Him. And so we must use our reason to work out if it's a good idea to follow His laws. And that is the crux of the matter. That is a question that we should be addressing, not whether He exists, but whether it's a good idea to follow His laws, and why so many people have followed His laws for all these centuries, and what it has done for their civilization. And it's pretty obvious to me. Or perhaps, well, I know it isn't obvious to others, and I've tried to explain it so many times, and that's why I keep getting accused of being repetitive. But what choice have I if I explain something and I know the person who I'm talking to doesn't really get it, but they're kind of bored already, but I know they don't get it, because if they got it, they would behave in a different way, they would speak in a different way. But then even their behaviour proves that I'm in fact correct in my thesis that we need a moral system, a functioning moral system that is at least effective at maintaining minimum standards of morality. So how does this link to St. Valentine's Day? Well, we are talking about gender relations, aren't we? What we want is a well-ordered society, and I'm saying it has to be patriarchy, but I know that a lot of people think it's impossible, and I'm saying, yes, it is perfectly possible if we have control of the media to tell the people what to think. And I already know that there are people who might pretend to believe in something because it suits them to. They don't want to stand out. So they have to say that they believe in a particular narrative, because to challenge it might have your social media account taken down, and meaning that you also suffer the lowering of your status. But as for acts that are stupid or evil or mad, I don't think it matters which it is, because if you jump if you jump off a tall building because you're mad, or because you are stupid, or because you are or some evil person pushed you, then it makes no difference. The consequence of, being pushed off a tall building will be exactly the same, whatever the reason was. Well, of course it matters if you want to, charge the perpetrator, your murderer, but in terms of physics, it doesn't matter. And talking about physics, we have to understand that science is not morality. They are different methodologies, different operating systems, operating for different purposes. So morality is always about what we should or shouldn't do, and science is about what can and can't be done. So one is strictly about morality, and the other is about reality. About what can be done without regard to morality. And obviously, we have our scope of action should be restricted on only acting on the basis of undisputed fact. So, a good example would be, if we know the way to San Jose, then, we will just follow the roadmap to San Jose. So that is to do with, your ability to get from A to B. You also need to follow the directions to get from A to B, right? So that is, what you want to do, assuming that you do want to go to San Jose. And then the other thing is whether you have any reason to go to San Jose, right? Should you go there if you can't afford to get there? Obviously not, so don't go. And then the other thing is that, you know where it is, you should get there. You could get there. In fact, you want to go there, but should you go there? Maybe there's trouble there, and maybe mum and dad said you mustn't go to San Jose. So should you still go? Are the reasons for your prohibition moral? And so these three stages that I keep talking about truth, logic, and morality, are really there to filter your actions. So it's telling you to do something or not do something, and this is the minimum of morality that I can explain to you. So you can never be acting morally if you're relying on something, on a fact, on a piece of information that isn't even true. And what you do cannot be wise if the reason that you decided to do it was irrational or immoral. Am I making much sense? I'm feeling a bit sleepy. The rain is falling slowly, and I am feeling a bit sleepy. I'm sorry it's a bit slow. Is Joe saying that Jews are goat herders? What a strange thing to say. Joe says, if you disagree with me, it only proves that I am correct. Well, not necessarily, but sometimes it can mean that I am correct. If you're, say, Islamophobic, if you're racist, if you're a liar, if you're unprincipled and illogical because of your Islamophobia, then, well, it could mean that I'm right and you're wrong. Well, I didn't say I would control the media. I'm just saying, if I did control the media, then I could make people, I could change their minds, right? There's nothing shocking about this statement. It's true. Morality is giving orders. Well, morality is about do's and don'ts and shoulds and shouldn'ts. I only mention San Jose because it's the song, do you know the way to San Jose? Da, 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 da. I should have a coffee. I don't know why Joe's calling me an Islamophobe. I don't know. People are so irrational these days. So I don't know if I'm the mad one or if everyone around me is mad. And also I don't know which is worse, that I am mad or that everyone around me is mad and I'm the only sane person. I think they're both equally frightening. All right, I think I've said enough. I hope enough of it made sense. And I did want it to be a Valentine theme.